Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to this channel, and if you enjoy the video, give it a like.
Also, check out the podcast below in the description.
We're sponsored by Indeed.com/ham.
Start hiring right now. $75 job credit at Indeed.com/ham.
If we did a sleepless night rating on all the players in the NFL, non-quarterbacks, okay? So the guys that are most likely to give a defensive coordinator a sleepless night, Deebo's going to be really high on that list because he is not a trick play running back. Like, not only is he an elite receiver, you don't have to prepare for one or two running plays a game from him or some weird trick play from him. And I know he's difficult to defend as a running back because he doesn't just score on, red zone, we're at the 4, let's put Deebo back there. I did the quick math, John. His average distance on his scoring touchdowns that are rushes is 16 yards. So I think for most teams that probably qualify as an explosive play, a rush play of 16 yards. That's his average rushing touchdown distance. The touchdown he ran in today, Sunday, was a little more dramatic than most of his, but they're usually about 15, from the 15 to the 20, kind of edge of the red zone, baby zone, kind of a pitch. Exactly. Weaves it. For those of you who can't see John, who just did the hand gesture, kind of weaves it outside, maybe cuts it back, gets a block on the edge, and then beats somebody to the pylon. This one was a little more dramatic, but 16 yards average, and I think it's, what is it now, 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns this year for Deebo, but also an elite receiver. You can trust him. Like, in any moment, late game, you didn't have any hesitation to when he tries to fight for extra yards. The play on 3rd and 11, the second that play happens, a run play on it was 3rd and 11, right? 3rd and 11 with the game on the line, the play that he was truly an inch short. The second you see that play unfold, you got a shot at a first down. You were yelling it as we were watching the play. The second you see that kind of Deebo loop, you see the blockers line up, you know that Deebo Samuel's going to have the chance to pick it up, and he almost did it. I mean,
technically 3rd and 10, but it felt like a long 10.
It felt like a long 10. If you said PTPer baby in honor of Dick Vitale, the list of PTPers in the NFL, I mean, he is on the short list.
Well, you know what's funny is, and again, because if you have Comcast, you get free Peacock. Watch the Montana doc is really awesome, and I've lived, born and raised Davis, California, the 49ers. I mean, I actually understand watching this. I wish my dad was still around because he was adamant till his dying days how good fucking Joe Montana was. And when you don't live through it, your natural inclination, when I was a kid, I argued young, and definitely in his later years, we argued like Brady. You watch that and you realize, like, Joe was a stone-cold killer. But there was, like, this core group of guys that were just all-time Niners. And until Dwight Clark was never on the level of Ronnie Lott or Jerry Rice, but he was equally as important when you talk to him. Just like with fans, like, he was just a core member. Dwight Clark was a member of the crew. And, like, a core, like 4 or 5 of the guys. And Deebo, to me, is just already an all-time 49er. Like, I wouldn't put him like Rice, Lott, Montana, Young level yet, but his talent, I don't know, I've never seen anything like it. And part of it is like, I'm so glad that he's on this team that is kind of known historically for being like, just having progressive offenses and doing things that people haven't seen, because that's what they were doing back in the 80s. And I feel Deebo is kind of Kyle's member of, because Jerry didn't show up. I think sometimes you forget this, but like, they had already won a couple Super Bowls. And Freddie Solomon, sneaky baller. But Deebo is just, I don't even know. I mean, there's not much precedent for his comp. What is he? Even he said, Grant asked him on Friday, like, what are you? He laughed. He said he was a wide back. And he's smart. You do not say back wide or something. You put wide receiver first. You got contract negotiation. But I think he takes pride in it, and it's clear, like, there ain't going to be an argument on him. Like, he's going to get, to me, the conversation starts around Amari's number, right? 5 for 100, 60 guaranteed. Like, that's just like the starting point. But he's not Devontae Adams. And Devontae is one of the greatest, and we'll see him this week. I mean, Devontae's gonna go down as a Hall of Famer, and Deebo might as well too. But Devontae's an outside wide receiver. Like Deebo is doing things. How many wide receivers? Keenan Allen and Devontae too. They couldn't do what Deebo's doing. They could not do it. I would say the only guy, and he's on the. I turned off the TV, but Tyreek can do some things that you can put him in the backfield and he can play running back. He did as a
Jamar
in
Chase?
college. His body type feels like he could.
He's stouter, watching him this year than I realized.
When you say Tyreek,
I think
it's
about,
kind of just short, stout, but he's so fast.
Yeah, yes, they're a little different, right? In that Debo's a little more physical.
Chief Storm back.
I think back to the Thursday night game, we talked about AJ Brown or Deebo, right? Like Kyle Shanahan would rather have Deebo, and I think he fits in the category of square peg, square hole, or round peg, round hole. He and Kyle Shanahan are such a match. And a coach's job is to find what a player does well and maximize it. But I mean, this is a match between a player and a coach that is just too perfect. We might be watching the most perfect player for Kyle Shanahan that Kyle Shanahan will ever coach.
Well, for example, back to the Montana doc, like Joe Montana really made Bill Walsh. Like, does Jimmy make Kyle, or like you said, is Deebo kind of making Kyle? Like, really getting to see what he's been able to do. Like, how many coaches would have this in the bag? I don't know many. Because part of it, Guy, most of these guys that we talk about, these offensive guys, they don't love running the football. Like, deep down to his core being, Kyle Shanahan loves running the football. Loves it. Like, it's his favorite thing to do is call a run play. And even today, like, I'm watching the game today thinking, Kyle, and he did it with Deebo a couple times, like, when you have a lot of edge speed, and the Cowboys, they have elite edge speed. They have all these defensive ends who are good in space. They're athletic. They're fluid. It's hard to run your tosses to the edge because they're fast, explosive, big. They can shed blocks. And it was hard, right? It was hard to get going. But you just keep cracking, and eventually maybe get a crack in their armor. Where I think a lot of other coaches, they just would throw the toss. They would stop running the toss, right? They would stop trying to get to the edge. But it's such a big part of Kyle's. It's his play. With this team, like they've had different plays before, more of a stretch zone with Mostert, but I think he feels very comfortable pitching it to Deebo and Mitchell. And I saw that McDaniels went on a rant about the pitch. Sometimes that's not a pitch, but just a direct pitch, and why you do it to stop. And they've added these elements to everything, but Deebo's ability to do that is. It makes sense why Mitchell can, right? Mitchell's a really good running back, and running backs can do that play. It's crazy how comfortable this 19 is doing that. Like we know how good he is running the slant route, breaking tackles, getting in the open field. Now Ayuk is starting to look like a little skinnier version of Deebo in the open field. But goddamn, how's he so comfortable running the football? I don't get it. I've been watching football for a living now for over a decade. Never seen a player like this.
And you can't say, well, he was a running back in high school, because most guys were running backs.
Everyone is. Yeah.
He was a running back in high school. I think he likes it. He had 25 rushes his entire 4-year. He was a 4-year player at South Carolina, Deebo Samuel, in college. So it's not like, this was a visual projection for the Niners. And, he's not been running the ball like this, but they ran him 14 times as a rookie. I would imagine most of that was, kind of end arounds. If we went back and looked, I don't remember a lot of this type of Deebo running.
Wait, you weren't watching South Carolina, Kentucky?
No, I'm talking about his, sorry, I said freshman year. I meant his rookie year in the NFL. In 19, he had 14 rushes.
Remember, he'd have a lot of those coming in motion really fast.
Yeah.
They'd hand it to him really quick. That was a go-to play that they probably ran. How many said? 14?
14.
159
yards and 3 touchdowns, by the way. So Kyle was like, 10 yards a carry with this guy? I think his comp is Draymond Green. Now, he does a thing like at the most elite level, right? Which is he was third in the NFL in total yards this year, Deebo Samuel. But I think what you're starting to see is, like Draymond, a lot of people are going to get comped to him without actually doing it as well as he does it. It's hard to be, what's the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Draymond Green's an exception to that, right? He's not a great outside shooter, but for the most part, what makes him so special is that he's so good at the multitude of things that he does.
I saw him score 32 points Game 7, 2016. He hit like 8 or 9 threes.
That's right.
He was on fire.
You know, I think Draymond, I saw somebody tweet, and I don't know if it was in relation to the Bengal game to Jamar Chase. But
Did he has a bad disc? Did you see that? A sneaky drop by the Warriors today? Mid-49er game, they just threw that out there. It's like, you sneaky bastards. You can't.
I did see that. But somebody tweeted, like, every guy, player runs a jet sweep, broadcaster. Reminds me a lot of Deebo. I don't know if that was a Jamar Chase. I don't know who. But to me, I see a lot in basketball with Draymond. Where, like, there's always, if you go back, remember Denzel Valentine, every 6'8" guy that rebounds is like, who's your game? Like, I'm like Draymond. It's like, yeah, but the thing that makes Draymond special is there's only one guy who really pulls it off to the degree that he does. And there's just like you said, you can take a running back and put him in the back, a receiver, put him in the backfield and run some plays for him. But he still has to be as good at it as Deebo. 16 yards per rushing touchdown is what Deebo averages with multiple explosive rushing touchdowns. He's just so unique. And I think what makes him unique is we're already seeing it. Like, there's going to be a lot of talk about this guy can be that. It really probably is what Kyle envisioned with Jalen Hurd, right? And it just turns out.
He clearly wants to have a chess piece that can do both, because then he can. It's not like he wants to replace his running back. He wants to use them both so you don't know what's coming, right? Because you really saw that today with Mitchell, where they would go that set where Jimmy's in the shotgun, they're both next to him. And you're like, well, he could throw wheel routes to them both. He could hand it off to either guy. Either guy can kind of lead block because they're both physical. It does add an element to the offense that is pretty stupid, right? Because we're hyping up Deebo, and rightfully so. Elijah Mitchell's a really good runner too. I mean, he's a natural downhill breaking tackles.
Smith at all?
I mean, didn't Emmett win a Heisman and was pretty good all-time leading rusher? Yeah, but I mean,
they were never going to give Elijah the Heisman, John. They never gave him a chance to win it.
To have a game where you run, God, the Niners ran for 170 yards today, 169 to be exact. But Deebo 72 yards. This team, but this is where, like, I think a lot of, and I know you were tweeting or texting me, and people were like, "Where's Kittle? Where's Kittle?" Part of what makes Kittle such a great player is, like, when they're running the ball down your throat, him and 44 are cracking skulls. And hiding the edge. Like, you couldn't do what they're doing without those two guys.
And you are also defending Kittle the whole time in the pass game.
Wouldn't you say part of the deal with the Cowboys is like, well, why don't they run the ball more? Well, they got 5 offensive linemen, but they don't really have a fullback, and their 2 tight ends just kind of look like receiving tight ends.
How about the play when they put 2 offensive linemen in the backfield?
That was sweet. I was like, why don't you guys do this more often? And then I realized if one of those guys rolls an ankle, you just lose a guy immediately. It's probably a little risky, but I did like that play, and I'd imagine Kyle was like, hey, Mike, make a note of that thing. Can we get a still shot of that for the plane ride home?
Yeah. I'm gonna do whatever they just tried to do, but I'm going to do it better, although the play worked.
It did
for the
work.
Cowboys. Yeah,
I just what is Deebo's comp?
Somebody said Anquan. He's faster. He's just more unique than Anquan. Yeah, he kind of looks. I understand he looks like Anquan physically, but yeah, I mean, I think you see more guys like him in college, where like one player has a physical superiority over everybody else. But this is the National Football League, John.
Yeah, National Football League.
I don't know who. Somebody mentioned Percy Harvin.
Well, I do think that the contract negotiation, he's become more running back. You just know the way the Niners work. I mean, if I'm Deebo, like, stop calling me a running back. Do not call me a running back. Hey, Kyle, you can keep handing me the ball, but, in about 2 months, my agent's going to meet Parag at hotel whatever in Indianapolis, and I don't ever want you to bring up the word running back, because the
problem is they're going to be like, well, our projections, you're going to get hurt in the next 2 years when we up your 25 carries a game.
Percy would have died to be this good in the NFL.
Eric says Deebo's comp is a bowling ball.
One thing the Niners,
Patterson, even though he's a running back now.
This is where this crew of guys deserves, Kyle and John, is they've just littered this team with just impact dudes. It's honestly why Jerry doesn't get totally shit on as a GM, because you watch the team, you're like, God, they got a lot of good players, right? It's not like they're undermanned with talent. The Niners' talent to beat the Cowboys today, you needed talent everywhere, and
they're without two of their most recent first rounders, right?
Who's that?
McGlinchey and Kinlaw.
McGlinchey, we noticed him, but Kinlaw, yeah, I mean you're out your right tackle. You drafted ninth. I think would they like a redo on that?
Yes,
maybe.
Yes,
but Kinlaw, you could just always use enormous defensive linemen, right? I mean, it's even though you don't really notice him being gone.
He's got to play. They're dealing. But this is my point is just like they have created so much depth with talent that they are down two of their first rounders, and they still are not. Sometimes you lose a couple of first rounders, and it looks like a team is lacking first rounders. But.
Well, here's what I would say. To me, this win of Kyle's 3 playoff wins, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Dallas, this was the most impressive. Would you agree there? Just the way they had to do it.
Yeah,
it was the road.
I mean, it was the diciest game, right?
Yeah, I mean, they kicked the shit out of those two teams, especially Green Bay.